Hello everybody, welcome to number 27. I'm Jack. Now it's 1983, I'm 10 years old. Thriller is #1 on the album charts. Mario Brothers has been released for the first time in the arcades, and Margaret Thatcher has been re-elected on a landslide. At the same time, Ford launched this, the Escort RS1600i. So in this video we're going to talk about the good things, we're going to talk about what's not so good, but also the kind of pricing that you expect to pay for one of these today. At this point in time, Ford's Escort was the best-selling car in Europe. They did have a hot version, the XR3, but it was judged to be a pretty bad car. It had a paltry 96 horsepower. The Ford CVH engine was really quite rough and not a pleasant sounding thing to use. The suspension was bone-jarringly hard. Generally speaking, really, the only thing that the XR3 had going for it is that it was well priced. So those who couldn't afford a Golf GTI could get one. Ford, though, wanted to show that if they put their mind to it, they could make a competitive, good performance version of the Escort, and at the same time they wanted to take it rallying. Hence this was born. It was a homologation special, so 5,000 units in total were supposed to have been made. In the end it was so popular, I think they made close to 9,000, of which just over 2,000 were sold in the UK. But trust me, this is a very, very different beast to the other Escorts. When they came out of the factory, these are 0 to 60 in about 9 seconds, a top speed of 120 miles an hour, which was pretty respectable for that time. The 1.6 litre CVH was thoroughly updated, with Bosch fuel injection, a different camshaft, higher compression, different intake manifold, and even solid tappets so they could get higher revs in the competition cars. On the road, that produced 115 horsepower as opposed to the 96 of the standard XR3, and made it a very different feeling car as well. The engine was slightly smoother, much happier to rev than the original carburetted lump. Chassis-wise, the changes were also very significant. Up at the front, it had a different suspension arrangement, which a limited torque steer, but also allowed for changes in camber and caster. It was 1 inch lower all round and had Coney shocks. At the back, it had stiffer bushers holding everything in place and an anti-roll bar, which the standard XR3 didn't have. The crossmember was also altered and changed to aluminium. Let's see how this all translates in the driving experience. This engine has also been improved because it's been blueprinted and gas flowed, so it feels even smoother than a CVH of this type in this car would do. It still has a little bit of roughness up top, but because this is such a scrapper by nature, I think it kind of suits it. And handling wise, grip is really good. It really doesn't lean. It's got a lovely little rush at the top end. I mean, these were light cars, and you can feel that because 970 kilos more or less. It gives it a nimbleness and a natural feel that would be more difficult with the heavier cars. It's just so happy to change direction. Now the trade-off is this is still running on the Coney shocks. They've been renewed, but they're to standard spec. It does feel very, very stiff. So even when you're scratching it like this, it just doesn't have, there's not a lot of finesse there. It's like a skateboard in many ways. Now, that's not bad because I think it suits the nature of the car. I like the fact as well that it doesn't just, you know, needlessly brush into understeer. I haven't encountered it at all on this drive. I'm sure in one of the tighter corners, if you really pushed it, it would end up doing that. There's no torque steer to speak of. And that's quite impressive because it's 115 horsepower as standard, but this one, with the blueprinted gas-flowed engine and a different back box as well, was producing, when the engine was originally built, I think in the 90s, about 160 horsepower. Doesn't feel like it's putting out that level of power right now, not at the wheels, but certainly quite quicker than 115 horsepower would suggest. And you can see that that chassis really is it's just no compromise. It's so stiff, and you get a bit of shaking in the cabin as well from various sort of bits. It certainly wouldn't be great to be used as a regular drive. Now, some of the other differences that the RS1600s had, even compared to the later XR3i, which took quite a few bits from this, it was improved, but this had this lovely RS steering wheel, ASS bucket seats. Now, these really hold you in place, and I think that the amount of padding, they're still comfortable, but even they help you to get a bit of feel from the car. And that's the other thing. To me, the amount of feel that's coming through, I think also maybe because of that stiff suspension, I don't know, but you can feel what the back end is doing. It does have the feel of a competition car. Love it. It really comes on cam at 4.5. It's the kind of car that is just begging you to drive it to the ragged edge the whole time. And luckily, although this has a bit more performance, the performance isn't so devastating that it makes you feel uncomfortable how quickly you're going on the road. On the exterior, they were distinguished by a special front air dam, a deeper air dam, the double spoiler at the back. Some really cool, for the time, absolutely perfect for the time, graphics. The striping at the front, I think, is so iconic. And then you had wheels which were specific to this, but later on I think also came out in the turbo. Now in this particular car also there's a few non-standard things, so the dials shouldn't be white, although I like the way they look. And this was also added by James, the current owner. The radio was taken out, which he still has. Thank you, by the way, James, for bringing us down. I'm really, really enjoying the drive today. Oh, the suspension really is quite comically stiff. But on the plus side, I have to say that it's not like it feels, some setups are so harsh, they just feel like they're not working. To me, I think it is working. It does feel like the car is still, it's still keeping it in check. But it's just that it transmits a lot of what's happening on the road directly to you. As already mentioned though, the plus side of that is that the amount of information that this little Escort is throwing at you is top class. You really feel everything that's happening at the front, the back wheels, it's just throwing it at you. You want to have some throttle on when you're going in the corners, because if you go on a trailing throttle, it will still hold the line at the front, but it just feels slightly less happy going into the corner. Now, whereas the normal XR3 had a 4-speed gearbox, this went to a close ratio 5-speed. It's not particularly precise, it's quite long of throw, but it is easy enough to use. How do I feel having driven it now? How do I feel about the RS1600? And I think that if you're looking for a sophisticated car, this isn't it. If you're looking for something that wears its heart on its massive bicep, then I think that the RS1600 is for you. It's exactly what it says on the tin. It was really a competition car. It feels like a competition car for the road even now, even though the power isn't that crazy. That's how it drives. But it's immensely rewarding to throw around, and it gives you it feels like it gives you 100% of itself. That lightweight, the stiff chassis, the keen engine, the response from it, it is immensely lovable. Now, in terms of values, you might be shocked. I certainly was when I looked it up. Now, it is a very special thing. It is very rare. Not that many of them survive. But all the same, to get a good RS1600, you would be looking today at about £50,000, and that is an awful lot of money. Now, as much affection as I have for this, and I've really enjoyed driving it today, I think it is a special car. I wouldn't be able to pay that kind of money for one of these, but if you look at the rarefied world now of Peugeot 205s going for 25 grand, you know, normal cars, not homologation specials like this, then you can kind of see why the values are at that point. Thank you all so much for watching, and I really look forward to seeing you for the next video.